Hi there, I hope you're all fine and ready for today's lesson. In today's video, I'm going to share with you a quick review of chapter 4 of our book, namely Critical Thinking. Let's look at the Let's look at the aims of the session. The aims of the session are to know and understand and hopefully apply what credibility is, what grounds we have for suspicion, what interested and disinterested parties are, how to assess the content of claims using personal observations and background information, and finally, what to consider in the credibility of the media and advertisement. Well, let's look at the word credibility. Okay, as you can see on the slide, if someone has credibility, people believe in them and trust them. If we say the police have lost their credibility, it means that people do not believe maybe in them as much as they used to. The adjective form of credibility is credible, and its opposite is incredible, which is, I guess, a form we hear more than the other two forms. We might have heard a lot of stories about different things in our lives, and we find some of them hard to believe. But what is it which makes some claims more or less credible? As you might intuitively know or guess, sometimes it's the claim itself which is hard to believe, and sometimes it's the person who's making the claim that makes it hard to believe. So we may have two aspects of credibility that we assess: the claims themselves and their sources. Okay. Before we go into details, let's see what you think of the claims on the next slide. Then you will have to say whether they are credible or they're not, and then say, is it so because of the claim itself, or is it because of the source? So number one, is it credible? Two, is it because of the claim or the source that you think so? Now let's have a look. You can pause the video now and answer. Good. Welcome back if you have paused the video. You can look at this slide later after a few minutes when we have covered a number of things. For now, let's look at the two ways credibility should enter into our evaluation of a claim. So we have two grounds for suspicion. As I mentioned earlier, there are two grounds for suspicions, or to put simply, there are two reasons for not believing something we hear or read. Sometimes the claim is so absurd or conflicting that we dismiss them immediately. For example, if you hear that people can walk to the moon, you're likely to reject this claim, no matter who makes this claim. You're unlikely to accept it, as it is impossible. But what is it that makes what we hear credible? One thing is our previous experience and background knowledge. If there is wide discrepancy between what we know, that is our knowledge, and what is claimed, we are more likely to reject the claim flat out. The next reason is the source of the claim. Depending on who makes a claim, our judgment could vary. If a doctor of medicine tells me how to lose weight, I'm more likely to accept it than when a mechanical engineer does so. Another important thing about credibility is that it's not an all or nothing phenomenon. It's not that you either find a claim credible or incredible. In a way, credibility is gradable. If I say that I have a bicycle, you're more likely to accept my claim than when I say I have a private jet. Likewise, if I say I have a Peugeot, you are more likely to believe than when I say I have a Lamborghini. So as you see, credibility is a matter of degree. Something can have a bit more or less credibility than something else. Okay, now you can look at activity A once more to rethink your answers. You can pause the video now. Alright, now we'll go to something very important in our discussion of credibility, and that is the notion of parties. We have two types of parties, interested parties and disinterested parties. Pause the video and read the quotation. Now, answer some questions. After a short pause, I will give you the answers myself, but please give the answer before I do. If I benefit from a claim, what am I called? An interested party. And if I don't benefit from it, a disinterested party. Logically, can we trust to a disinterested party or an interested party? Obviously, a disinterested party. If I'm working for a bank and I tell you to invest your money in our bank, as it is more profitable maybe, would you accept it without any suspicions? Well, I wouldn't. I would probably take it with a pinch of salt if someone advised me to do so. Well, in this case, they always say, get a second opinion. Now, let's go to our second activity. Now, please stop the recording after you see the next slide and answer the question. I hope you paused and now you're ready to look at the activity, the key, sorry. Alright. Well, I guess I was very quick, but sorry. Now look at this question. Now pause the video and write down your answers. Okay? Welcome back. Have you written any of those characteristics you had in mind? Look at these characteristics. Have you written any of these? Well, I hope not, but as we say, I hope not, because these things are irrelevant characteristics, but are we not affected by them? I mean, if we see a smartly dressed person who says something, would we not take it more seriously than when a person with shabby old jeans does? So here comes another question. What should we consider if these characteristics are not important? Well, I can say that we can ask two questions to see whether what is claimed is okay, is credible, or it's not. Let's look at this is the first question we can ask. When does a claim lack credibility? Okay, let's see when a claim might not be credible. This quotation from Moore and Parker can help. Now let's look at each of the components. Yes, they are personal observations, they are in bold, and background information. So two things are really important when we are checking the credibility of a claim. One is our personal observations, and the second one is the background information. Now, our own observations are said to be the most reliable source of information. If what we see disagrees with it, then we are likely to dismiss the claim. If I can see that it's raining in our neighborhood and a friend claims that it's shining, what should my reaction be? Obviously, I won't need critical thinking to reject my friend's claim. I simply won't believe them because of my own observations and that they are different. But it's more important maybe to remember that sometimes our observations of memory are not that reliable either. A lot of parameters might affect our observations and memory. Things like fatigue or tiredness, distraction, our worries, or even physical conditions can also affect our observations and recollections, obviously. For instance, there might be too much noise, or as here there might be not enough light, and that might affect my observations. So some other things that affect our observations are beliefs, hopes, and expectations too. Are we not all affected by this COVID-19, also known as coronavirus disease? Are we not willing to believe a claim that a miraculous cure was discovered for it, no matter what the source is? This is known as wishful, which brings us to the next point. Yes, we might have this wishful thinking, but don't we allow our hopes sometimes to master judgment? I guess the answer would be yes, all of us do so. As another example, we can say you are more likely to accept what the people around you say if you like or love them. I'm sure there are lots of examples that you can find in your own class with the people around you, the people who sit next to you. An innocent remark like, you look happy today, can be interpreted differently depending on who it is coming from, a friend or a foe or someone you do not like that much. We will talk more about wishful thinking in chapter 6. One more point. Although we rely on our observation and memory, we might sometimes fail us. Sometimes we don't even remember what we had for dinner last night. Look at this picture and you will see how our observations might be at times beguiling. Yes, as you can see, we can't really say how many legs the elephant has. Well, you should always evaluate what you hear with what you already know, which is known as background information. So this brings us to the second way of assessing the content of a claim. As you can see, something we do when we are assessing the content of a claim is assigning initial plausibility. Now, what does plausible mean? Plausible means seeming likely to be true or able to be believed. If an excuse is plausible, can it be believed? Yes. Is it probably true? Yes. Now that we know that we start with initial plausibility and what it means, we can, or maybe I should just repeat myself. Initial plausibility means when we hear a claim, we compare it at first with what we already know and accept it if it is consistent with our background information. Now, if I say I have a flight to catch, you might accept this claim, as it's possible for people to buy a plane ticket to fly from one corner of the world to another. But if I say I bought a private plane, you are unlikely to believe that because of your background information about a teacher's salary and about the price of a private plane and about many other things. Now, if I ask you to come to my office to discuss your project and you say you can't leave home because of the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease, do you think that your excuse is plausible? Very much so. Well, assigning initial plausibility is more like dovetailing, if you like. How well do the claims fit into our background information? Okay, in order to assess the credibility of the source, one very important thing to consider is the party who's sharing the information or making the claim. If your mechanic tells you that you need to have your car engine replaced, maybe you say that, well, I should get a second opinion because the mechanic is an interested party and possibly untruthful about this. But what if I tell you that you need to have the engine of your car replaced? Would you still need a second opinion? Definitely, but why? Well, the answer is quite clear. I don't have real knowledge and hence I might be inaccurate about car engines and stuff. So, as you can see, there are two things involved here. One, is the person interested or disinterested? And two, is the person an authority? And when I talk about your car, you might ask, what do you know about cars? If you're sure the person has the expertise, then you should wonder about the truthfulness of the response, as well as their objectivity and accuracy. Now, a word of caution, if you consider a person an authority, you should not automatically qualify what they say in other areas. If you are a good doctor of medicine, you might not necessarily know and be able to advise people on how to learn other languages or what the government should do to combat an economic recession. I think this is our last point here almost, and that is about the credibility in the news media. Well, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I would say that when a claim comes from mass media, we should say, what can we do? Well, there's not much we can do, but at least we can just check the credibility of what we hear. Scholars claim that because fewer corporations are now controlling the news media, they're not as reliable as they used to. Obviously, the government is also playing a role here. I can give you an example, a very quick one, of what was called the Spanish flu. This is what happened in the First World War. There was a flu outbreak which came to be known as the Spanish flu. It infected over 500 million people. And the death toll is estimated to have been somewhere from 17 million to 50 million. But at the same time, there was the Second World War, as I said, and to maintain the morale of the people of the country, they didn't let the media cover this. This World War I censors minimized early reports of the illness, and the mortality rate in Germany, the United States, France, and the United Kingdom were really, really high. During World War I, Spain was a neutral country and papers were free to report the epidemic's effect there. Maybe that's why these stories created a false impression that Spain was the place where it was most hard hit, which finally gave rise to the pandemic's nickname, Spanish flu. This is how governments can manage and have done so with the news. Now let's turn our attention to advertising, which is the last piece I'd be talking about. Now, Moore and Parker believe advertisements put our credibility benchmark to the test. So you want to check your credibility bar. Actually, this is the best way to do so. Now think of these two questions and answer them. Pause the video, please. All right. Now, I hope you've answered the questions. And in your answers, did you include, when you were answering the questions, did you include the pandemic in your fears? This new pandemic? Was finding a cure for the coronavirus disease one of your desires? Now, I'm sure some of you miss your social life as a result of this, so maybe that was one of your desires. Anyways, what is important in advertisements, and what maybe advertising agencies pay attention to, is these two criteria, fear and desires. But we say whatever advertisements do, they try to aim at our desires and fears. Advertising agencies pay close attention to this. And they would like to find ways to satisfy our desires and dispel the fears we experience. When confronted with an ad, we should ask ourselves simply, does this ad give us a good reason to buy this product? Can this product improve my life? The ad justifies a purchase only if it proves that you would be better off with the product than without it. Or that you'd be better off with the product than with the money that you trade for it. Now, advertising agencies pay very close attention to your fears and your desires, as I mentioned. And finally, this brings us to the different types of ads, with and or without reasons. Obviously, some ads give us the reason why we should buy a product, but some don't. But some don't give us the reason, so we call them reasonless ads. Ads that are reasonless fall into three categories. I mean, they pay attention to three things: feelings, people, and situations. In case of feelings, they try to arouse or inspire a feeling inside us, like being beautiful, like showing a beautiful lady on maybe a package, a toothpaste, and then you feel that if you buy that, you would have a beautiful and pleasant smile too, maybe. The second one is about the people you wish to look like, a person you admire, for instance, a handsome actor advertising a famous brand of clothing. And finally, it would be the situations you would like to be in. Think of an ad where you see people lying on the beach enjoying themselves. Wouldn't you opt for this? What is this ad doing? Obviously, it's not giving a reason. It's reasonless, but we would like to find ourselves in this beautiful situation. Now, one last thing, and that is product placement. This is an indirect way of advertising. Apparently, they are not advertising the product, but you see people in a program or a movie are using the product. And subconsciously you feel obliged to buy that product, maybe again subconsciously, to be like those people, or to be in those situations, or to feel that way. Well, these were the aims. I hope we covered, and I'm sure we covered actually, all these aims. You can go over them and pause the video to see whether we covered these things or not. Here is what you have for your task and the deadline for it. Thank you for watching, and please take care of yourselves and your families. Goodbye.